Everyone heard the sound, yet nobody understood what it truly meant, not until the little girl stepped forward. The grocery store froze. It wasn't the kind of silence that comes naturally. It was the kind that hits a room like a sudden storm, where even the humming freezers and squeaking carts seem to hold their breath. A man in an immaculate charcoal suit stood at the checkout counter. One swipe. Then another. Each time, the machine responded with the same cold message flashing in red. Declined. People leaned in. Someone gasped. Someone chuckled. A few raised their phones, not to help, but to record. And just a few feet behind him, a little girl with mismatched shoelaces tightened her grip on a tiny cloth bag. Her eyes flickered between the man's trembling hands and the crowd building around him. No one knew who he really was. No one imagined the storm that had quietly followed him into this simple store. And no one, not a single person in that long line of staring strangers, expected what the girl would do next. If you believe in kindness, in the hidden battles people fight, and in the power of a single brave heart, then stay. This might be the story you needed today. The man's name was Damien Cole, a name whispered in business meetings, printed in magazines, and engraved on buildings across the country. People called him the Steel King, and not just because of the industry he ruled. He was known for a heart as cold as the metal he built his empire upon. Yet today, he was just a man whose card didn't work. The cashier, barely 20, raised an eyebrow high enough to touch the ceiling. "Sir, maybe try a normal card," she said, loudly enough for the aisles to hear. Laughter erupted from behind. Someone whispered. "Probably maxed out." Another voice rode above the murmurs. "Rich people think they're above everyone. Look at him now." Damien swallowed hard. He could argue. He could explain. He could bark orders like he always did. But he didn't. Because the truth, the painful, humiliating truth, was this. His accounts had been frozen. Overnight. Without warning. A betrayal from inside his own company, something he had built from the ground up, had pushed him into a sudden free fall he hadn't even processed yet. And here he was, standing in a shabby neighborhood grocery store, unable to buy a loaf of bread and a carton of eggs. The murmurs grew louder. A woman pulled her child closer. A man in a trucker hat shook his head and snickered. But the little girl. She didn't look away. Her name was Mira. 7 years old. Hair tied in 2 uneven braids. Wearing a faded yellow shirt that had clearly been washed far too many times. She stepped forward slowly, her tiny shoes squeaking like they were scared themselves. Her mother, who stood several feet back scanning discount cans, didn't notice. Mira looked at Damien first. Not with judgment. Not with curiosity. But with something far rarer. Concern. Are you okay?" she whispered. The crowd fell silent again, not out of compassion, but out of disbelief. Damien blinked, stunned that anyone had spoken to him without mockery. He tried to smile. It broke halfway. "I'm fine," he lied. No one believed him. Especially Mira. She reached into her cloth bag, the one decorated with marker hearts and patches, and pulled out what looked like savings collected over months. 4 crumpled bills. Coins of every size and color. She pushed them toward the cashier. I can help," she murmured. The cashier's jaw dropped. Someone snorted. Someone whispered. "Is this a joke?" But Mira didn't flinch. She didn't even blink. Her arms trembled as she held the money up, because even a child knows when they are doing something terrifying. Damien stared at her, his throat tightening. This little girl, barely 7, offering everything she had, for a stranger. Not a billionaire. Not a man with power. Just a human being who needed help. His vision blurred. Not from humiliation. Not from anger. From the realization that he had spent years ignoring the mirrors of the world, people who gave without expecting anything. The laughter died. The smirks faded. Every adult in that line suddenly felt smaller, shrinking into their own shadows as this tiny girl demonstrated something they had forgotten long ago. Humanity. The cashier lowered her gaze, shame washing over her. I can cover this, she muttered, suddenly quiet. But Mira shook her head. No. I want to do it. The strength in her voice was soft, but unbreaking. The kind of strength only pure hearts possess. Damien knelt down slowly so he could look into her eyes. Why would you help me? He asked, his voice raw. Mira shrugged gently. You looked alone. 5 simple words. 5 words sharp enough to pierce the steel shell Damien had built around himself. He lowered his head, the weight of the moment crushing the persona he had worn all his life. Thank you, he whispered, his voice nearly breaking. You have no idea what you just did. But she did. In her own small, innocent way. She understood exactly what kindness was meant to be. The groceries were bagged, quietly, respectfully this time. Damien could have walked back to the expensive car waiting outside. He could have buried the moment under a mountain of pride. He could have pretended none of this mattered. But he didn't. Instead, he looked at Mira. Can I walk you home? He asked. She nodded, grabbing his hand without fear. Her touch was warm. Grounding. Something he hadn't felt in years. Her home was only a few blocks away. Small. Worn. With a porch step that sagged like it was tired of holding the world. Her mother opened the door, freezing when she saw Damien, a stranger in a $1,000 suit, holding her daughter's hand. But she didn't ask questions. She didn't judge. She welcomed him inside. Their home was simple but filled with something Damien's mansion had never known. Peace. Myra's mother worked a double shift at a laundry facility. She apologized for the mess, even though nothing was truly messy. Damien sat quietly, watching Mira draw hearts on a scrap of paper, humming to herself like the world hadn't just witnessed her change a man's life. That night, Damien didn't sleep. He replayed the moment at the store. The humiliation. The cruelty. And then. The courage of a little girl who chose compassion when everyone else chose mockery. It was the most valuable gift he had received in decades. And he wasn't going to waste it. The next morning, Damien made several phone calls. Within weeks, the news broke. Former billionaire launches nationwide project to help struggling families. But unlike other wealthy philanthropists, Damien didn't hide behind press releases. He visited neighborhoods himself. He listened to people's stories. He paid grocery bills anonymously. He repaired homes quietly. He funded scholarship programs for children who never dared to dream. And at the center of this movement, without fanfare, without publicity, was a little girl with mismatched shoelaces. Damien made sure she and her mother never struggled again, but he did it with dignity, not charity. He didn't parade her kindness. He protected it. She became the reminder he carried everywhere. Wealth means nothing if compassion isn't part of it. People no longer talked about Damien Cole's skyscrapers or empires. No one remembered the ruthless businessman he used to be. They remembered the day his card was declined. They remembered the little girl who stepped forward. They remembered how a tiny act from someone with very little transformed the life of a man who once had everything. That was his real legacy. Not money. Not power. But kindness. If this story touched your heart, don't just listen to it. Carry it with you. Let it shape your choices, your words, your moments. Be the person who steps forward when others step back. Be the voice of kindness in a world that often forgets it. And if you believe these stories matter, backhand index pointing right, like this video. Backhand index pointing right, subscribe to Souls Connecting Tales. Backhand index pointing right, share this story with someone who needs hope today. Because sometimes, a single act of kindness is enough to rewrite someone's entire life.